for the journalist get through here, and today we're back for another Scp Saturday, part 2 for Scp 682. Let's start. Item is Dr. Clef, tissue test record, NA. Termination test record, SCP 682, introduced to testing area. Dr. Clef introduced to the testing area. Dr. Clef in 682 stare at each other for approximately 3 minutes. Dr. Clef slowly backed out of the testing area as SCP 682 continues to stare. Dr. Clef attempts to open the door of testing area. Door of testing area determined to be locked. Dr. Clef reportedly uses several loud expletives and then attaches an unknown device to the door, keeping his eye on SCP-682 the whole time. SCP-682 continues to stare. Dr. Clef detonates a small plastic explosive charge on the door, causing a containment breach. SCP-682 continues to stare. Dr. Clef engages emergency secondary lockdown doors and declares a partial containment situation. SCP-682 does not react. Dr. Clef proceeds to experiment observation center. Item: high altitude impact. Tissue test record denied by O5 command. Termination test record testing denied by O5 command. Seriously, drop it out of an aircraft and let it fall. Who in the I am one ordinary human child. Tissue record. Termination test record. Child began to scream and cry even when SCP-62 was introduced into the cell. Subject was immediately and messily devoured by SCP-682. Okay, so that didn't work so well. Maybe the fact that the kid was crying made 682 perceive it as hostile intent. Guest researcher, Dr. W. One ordinary child, human child, drugged to cancel extreme emotional reaction. Tissue record N/A. Termination test record. Child stood and smiled, giggling at SCP-682 with no sign of fear. SCP-682 devoured the subject messily. Notes? Maybe we can try that again. I'm sure somewhere out there's a kid who make friends with it like SCP-053 did. Guest researcher, Dr. W. Item. Guest researcher, Dr. W. Tissue test record N/A. Termination test record. Subject screamed in terror and pounded on the door to the test facility, begging to be let out. SCP-682 divided in messy 3 minutes after being introduced. Toast. Notes? When is it toast? Fringe sadistic. I've got no sympathy for that moron whatsoever. Introducing children to this French monster. What the hell? Assistant Director Clef. Item: W cutting laser. Tissue test record. Tissue sample was successfully bisected 13 times before adopting a mirrored finish. Termination test record. After multiple attempts, the main body of SCP-62 was successfully dissected into parts that were equal in the mass at T plus 7, 13 hours. Dead scraps were removed from the room while the two have successfully designated SCP-682-A and SCP-682-B regenerated. After the recovery period, SCP-62-A and B appeared to survey the area and evaluate each other. What the heck? Presuming an intersection of attack. Surface fluctuations indicated of international modification were noted, but all external changes occurred when and disappeared far too quickly to be as you carefully described. High energy organs on the face, spine, and performance were observed as well on both specimens, usually forming, pulsing, and disappearing again over the course of a few seconds. At T plus 35 and 42 hours, SCP-682-A and B student collapsed on the floor, and all vital signs remaining in Sorry, something bad happened. I gotta fix something. Okay, anyways, back to what I was saying. All vital signs remain in this state for the following 48 hours. At T plus 84 hours, the laser was used again and turned to cut SCP-682-A and B into more manageable pieces, leading to minor structural damage to the room as the laser being reflected off their skin, as both A and B remained immobile despite the increased potential was given. 2 D-class personnel were released into the room immediately upon the entry. Data expunged. Technical failure of the observation. Technical failure of the observation equipment and test chamber breach was detected while mounting activating safety protocol T98816 OC108-682 N147. Containment was successfully reestablished at the cost of blank security personnel, D-class personnel, and researchers, including doctors. Data expunged. The majority of the testing area was considered unsalvageable and demolished for later reconstruction. Experiment supervisor Dr. was found unconscious and in critical condition outside of the observation chamber. See medicologist for medical staff succeeded in reviving him to be debriefed by agent, whereupon he was harshly re-impended and data expunged. Again, only one SCP-682 was found in the lockdown area surrounding in the wreckage, occurring at near full mass rather than the expected 50% scattered tissue within the facility account for the missing mass. Doctors history indicates that SCP-682 A and B exude a higher degree of correlation following this could be but that once SCP-682-B became heavily damaged by security personnel, it was immediately devoured and reabsorbed by 682-A. Total loss of one of the SCP-682 specimens is considered highly improbable, and searches have been called to a halt. Agent. Much as our department would love to know whether SCP-682 retained a single conscious during its dissection, or whether the two counterparts were actually able to cooperate until the stalemate was ended by external forces for practical purposes, we do not, under any circumstances, advise trying that again. Dr. Nokolini. What? Item 60 anti-thermonuclear bomb. What? Tissue test record and a termination test record. Testing denied by 05 command. Notes. One would think that putting SCP-682 in the epicenter of an explosion that can cause third-degree burns at all distances of 300 kilometers is a good idea, but as long as there are odds of the survival, we simply cannot go through with it. This is a goddamn nuke. But if 682 survives and adapts, we'd be bold beyond belief. 05 command. You said the nuke's a bad idea. SCP Item SCP-662 Tissue test record NA Termination test record. Mr. Deeds is summoned and asks if he can destroy SCP-682 completely and permanently. Mr. Deeds responds, "I'm terribly sorry, sir. I'm afraid I can't." Mr. Deeds is asked if he can kill SCP-682. Mr. Deeds responds, "Again, sir, I'm terribly sorry, but I'm afraid I can't." Mr. Deeds is asked if he can incapacitate SCP-682. Mr. Deeds responds, "As a matter of fact, depending on how sir means the word incapacitate, and depending on how long sir wishes the creature to be incapacitated." Yes. Mr. Deeds asks how expand on how he would perform such an action. Mr. Deeds requests a response. "Sir, the simplest and quickest method, which I must point out would not be the most efficient, would be for me to offer myself up for the creature to devour. Certainly its offensive capacity would be less than the world it is occupied in consuming my flesh. This would be simplest, as it requires no preparation on my part here, but I'm certain you'll understand that the overall effect on the creature would be insignificant. Were I to engage the creature in combat, either with or without, I could certainly occupy its attention and offensive capacity for a longer interval. Unfortunately, I'm afraid the creature would eventually defeat me, at which point it would begin consuming my flesh, as I have previously described. However, I could certainly bootstrap myself with a variety of noxious substance, soporifics, perhaps, or explosives, or perhaps encapsulating neurotoxins, or even redacted, so that even when the creature does eventually consume it, it sustains further damage. That said, sir, I must remind you that the creature's tendency towards regeneration means that any death on inflict would be sadly temporary. Mr. Deeds is thanked and dismissed. Note: Mr. Deeds' knowledge is inadequate. It is not to be considered a need security breach. Item SCP-689 Tissue Test Record overridden by 5 command. Termination Test Record 682 exposed to SCP-689. Lights shut off in containment area. Lights remain extinguished for 5 minutes. Lights are switched on. SCP-689 remains in its original position. SCP-682 is in a pool of gray and black liquid with no observable life signs. D-Class issued to physically verify 682 termination. With two agents supervising, D-Class enters 3 steps in the containment area when 682 rapidly rises and attacks D-Class personnel. SCP-682 breaks containment and escapes. Clear 1 agent in the process, remaining agent killed by SCP-689 due to accident authorization during testing. Notes: It appears that SCP-682 is not alive in a way that is currently understood, or is immune to SCP-689. In addition, it appears SCP-682 has prior knowledge of SCP-689, or was somehow able to understand its function in order to play Possum and escape. Possum. Oh, there's 3 more. Item SCP-738 Tissue Record and /A Termination Test Record. I'm back once again. I had to do something. Okay. Termination Test Record. Researcher sits in SCP-7382 and asks, what would you want in exchange for permanently destroying the entity, which we refer to as SCP-682, while leaving this planet? Its biosphere, its human population, its human civilization, the SCP Foundation, and the rest of the universe intact. Entity takes form of the same entity as Test 203 states. Your Foundation couldn't afford it. You personally definitely could afford it, and does not respond further. Alrighty then. Last one. Item SCP-743 Tissue Test Record. Sample consumed without incident. Termination Test Record. Mobile container with SCP-743 was transported to testing chamber, into which SCP-682 was released from primary containment. SCP-743's container was opened remotely. SCP-743 observed resting. SCP-682 appears to ignore SCP-743. After blank minutes, SCP-743 started flowing. SCP-682 appears to notice within seconds. SCP-682 cautiously approached SCP-743 and tasted its flowing liquid. SCP-682 started to lap up the liquid from SCP-743. After blank seconds, SCP-682 grasped the liquid straight from SCP-743 into its mouth. SCP-682 drank what Blake missed at times did expunge on his back. SCP-743 stopped flowing, started feeding. SCP-682 tried to fight off an ant swarm, but was soon covered. Swarms started to feed on SCP-682, who stopped moving. Blank minutes later, after SCP-682 had been reduced to 79% of its original mass, SCP-682 opened its mouth and stuck out its tongue. SCP-682 tongue had become 5 meters long and sticky, like an anteater's tongue. SCP-682 started to lap up the ants off itself with its tongue in thousands of ants at once. SCP-682 and SCP-740 continued to feed off each other for blank hours until testing was terminated. SCP-682 displayed faster than normal regeneration, while blank days afterwards. Adapted tongue remained for blank days. Noted. SCP-743 treated SCP-62 as organic, but that's hardly conclusive proof. More significant is the question of whether consuming 743's liquid contributed to 682's heightened regenerative abilities. If, as expected, it did, 743 and 682 need to stay far, far away from each other. Dr. Lambert. Okay, guys, this is the last one of the day. Item SCP-807 Tissue Test Record and /A Termination Test Record a 682 Special 10K of rotten meat and sharpened bone splinters, 10L of rancid mayonnaise, 1L potassium cyanide, and 1 kilograms of morphine hydride combined into a solid mass, then transmuted via SCP-803 was dumped into the testing room. SCP-682 devoured Special, then began loudly demanding more. 9 minutes later, SCP-682 collapsed. After 40 minutes of observation, SCP-682 had not moved. 2 D-Class personnel in the anti-Aero 7 environment suits were sent in to verify that 682 was in fact terminated. D-Class worked with further specials in case SCP-682 required further distraction. Specials were placed in front of SCP-682's head in response. SCP-682 opened its eyes and began gnawing weakly on the nearest special. D-Class personnel began touching SCP-682, believing that it had been rendered harmless. At this point, SCP-682's skin ruptured in at least 11 locations, releasing ultra high pressure, estimated 2.7 pascals jets of blood in all directions. Contact with 682's blood breached the integrity of the anti-ocean environment, and both these class personnel were contaminated. These class personnel began their explosion by the time SCP-682 had finished consuming. The second special skin had healed over, and both the class personnel had terminated. SCP-682 then devoured the third special with the same speed and effusionism as it had devoured the first. Well, guys, that's it for this video. Subscribe, like, and comment for more, and Have a nice day. Bye bye. Ciao.